Well, hello, Christian Metal Group. We're here with another great interview. So my name is Jimmy. I'm one of the admins, longtime metalhead, booked and promoted concerts for years. And then we got Jay.
That's right. Also, I'm a moderator for the group and longtime metalhead and play music.
That's right. All kinds of music. And Joel, say hello.
Hello, I'm Joel.
Joel. And so a little interesting fact, you and I graduated the same year. And of course, I'm in South Carolina and you're in Georgia. And you're also right about halfway between me and Jay. So we could have a party at your house, you know.
That's right.
Oh yeah, that's not going to be disappointing for you, but yeah, sure.
Okay. Awesome. Well, hey, I've been listening to your podcast for a good while now, and it's good to put a face with the name.
Yes,
Appreciate you jumping on here, and
yeah, and that's the Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh yes, exactly.
I'm just joking.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, I wouldn't know any different, right?
Right.
So let's kind of start at the beginning. So when did you become a believer?
It's really been all my life. And if anybody's wondering, it's not the Joe Rogan podcast, it's the Imaginary Music podcast that I host. I'm sure.
Thanks for clarifying.
Just to clear that up. Yeah, no, really, I grew up going to church my whole life. Just pretty strict parents. I grew up in the 80s and 90s and youth group and all that fun stuff. I was pretty strict Christian for most of my life, and then unfortunately kind of stray away from it. When I got older, you kind of tend to dabble in other things, thinking you're going to live forever and you could do whatever you want. And not that I was doing anything crazy, but I mean, it's always been a part of my life, and always striving to be a better Christian and believer in faith with all of the temptations of world and all the problems that we deal with. It's tough, but it's well worth it.
What was your go-to band when you were in youth group? Like, what was the one band back then?
It's funny, I in youth group it might be a little different. Stryper's always been my band.
Yeah.
But around youth group, I was very into the Newsboys.
Is what.
So
the reason I asked is I was like, I'm thinking it's either one of three options: Newsboys, Supertones, or Audio Adrenaline, and you nailed it.
Yeah, I could not do the ska thing. Ska, although I saw Five Iron Frenzy quite a few times, and I was kind of friends with Jeff. They're I don't know what she played. One of the brass instrument. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen them a few times myself.
Yeah, and Audio Adrenaline, I saw them. Not really my thing either. DC Talk, though, I was pretty big into DC Talk. Saw them down at the Omni in Atlanta in their heyday. But Newsboys, just I don't know what it was. They were my thing, man. Love the Newsboys.
Nice. Yeah, I remember. I saw Supertones live a couple times, and they were amazing
with Audio Adrenaline. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Those guys put on good shows, but ska just wasn't really my thing. It was fun to go to the concert and kind of watch it, but it was not something I was like, I'm gonna listen to this in the car on my way to do something.
You weren't skanking out to the show.
Yeah, I wasn't skanking and driving.
There we go. Well,
we're gonna be getting messages now. What's a skank? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, not the typical skank.
You're right.
Yo, meanings of words be changing like crazy, man.
Yeah, I haven't heard that term in a while in that manner.
Right, exactly.
Skanking.
Yo, so we talked about ska, we talked about alternative music. So let's talk about metal. Like, what was your introduction to heavy metal? And
well, just depends on what your definition of heavy metal might be.
All right, so you talked about Stryper, so let's talk
about Stryper.
Yeah,
not Stryper. I would say kind of the heaviest thing. Really, if you look at it from the Christian perspective, I got into Tourniquet, and that would be my first kind of heavy metal. And I would remember I would go to pawn shops and pick up just cheap cassette tapes too. So even though I felt convicted later about it, I picked up a Slayer cassette tape and I was like, I don't know, I feel maybe I shouldn't be listening to this. I was very strong with my convictions back then. So, but Tourniquet was really maybe my first kind of metal that I was really getting into. Metallica, with Black Album around that time too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually saw Tourniquet at like Carowinds, I think, and Ted's drum set was so large they rolled it out on an entire separate state, had its own wheels
Right.
and everything, and you could
Wow.
not see him for the cymbals. You could not see the dude. It was awesome.
And all the cowbells, yeah, too. Did he
Oh,
do the cowbell solo with all the different bells? I never got to see
I,
him, but I saw
I
videos.
think so. I mean, this has been 20 plus years, and it was. I'm sure
What
it was around
version was that though? Yeah, you're about to say.
yeah, I'm sure it was around the Crawl to China era.
Oh, okay.
oh
So
wow.
Luke
Yeah,
Luke
I
used to.
saw them doing microscopic.
Oh, Luke, man, Luke's been in everything. He's amazing.
Well, what stunk was I was supposed to see Tourniquet at a place called the Strand in Marietta, Georgia, right after Luke had joined, and we were about to go, called up the venue, and for some reason it had been canceled.
Oh man,
And that was like the second big concert around that time, that because Michael Sweet was supposed to see him on his first real tour with was it Nouveau and Imagine This or some other, and that got canceled. I'm like, man, getting a lot of disappointing
Yeah.
cancellations and I never got to see Tourniquet. I never saw him and never
Wow.
will, unfortunately.
no. So just growing up, even before Striper and all that, just what were some of your favorite bands?
Nothing before Stripe. My first concert ever is it's not that cool. It was in Champaign, Illinois, because we lived there, and I went and saw my parents took me, but Amy Grant and Rich Mullins.
Yeah.
Rich Mullins, to me, that's
Oh.
cool.
Yeah.
I don't
loved
remember.
it. I wish I could have seen him.
I wish I could remember it, but I don't, unfortunately. And I remember seeing Amy Grant. I remember that part of it vaguely. And then my second concert ever was even cooler because it was Carmen.
Same here. That's
so-
all.
I saw
Yeah.
Carmen when I was young too. Wow.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
like
gonna
you had to
tell
see
you-
Carmen.
I'm not going to tell you my first concert was Ray Boltz, but my second was Carmen. The
That's
Riot.
not bad.
What the start of
Right.
Carmen
Yeah.
support group?
That's right.
Carmen.
And that was like right around the time the Champion came out. That whole thing, the whole album with the Champion, and I remember meeting him after the concert. He stood at the
Oh wow.
at the stage and shook everybody's hand.
Nice.
Came up and I saw Carmen again up in Gatlinburg when I was in youth group. And but I was talking about this yesterday. I was on another podcast with some other friends from Facebook, but just talking about Carmen, and I kept bringing that up because one of the co-hosts wasn't really familiar with Carmen, the whole A to J, all that. I mean, Carmen was, it wasn't really cool to like Carmen in a way, like to be like,
Right.
I like Striper. But I would tell you what, if Carmen was still alive, I would love to interview him on my podcast just to pick his brain about
Absolutely.
everything, his life and what he got to deal with.
I'm looking at a Carmen 316 up above my CDs right now.
All right.
Wow, man.
VHS.
Oh wow. I think I have one of those VHSs also.
I don't have any Carmen VHS,
That's
but
great.
I mean, you're saying before, it was really just whatever my parents were listening to, and then my dad's the one that introduced me to Striper when the God We
Nice.
Trust album came out. He I remember while he was in the living room and I was in my bedroom, he yells, he's like, come here to the living room. And he's like, here's that band I was telling you about. It was the Always There For You video, and it was on MTV.
Oh wow.
And I just was starting to play drums at that point. And I remember going, that is the coolest drum set I've ever seen. And then the helicopters in the video, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, right after that, he brings the cassette tape. I'm like, wow, these girls they got some hairy chest.
That's called parenting done right.
Yeah, it's really crazy that my dad did that because they were pretty strict about stuff. I guess he was trying to get me into something Christian.
Sure.
Yeah.
And because I couldn't even watch the Smurfs. My mom was so strict. She'd be like, there's a wizard, then the wizard, you'll want to become a wizard or something weird. I don't know.
Sounds like my mom.
Yeah. So it was kind of, I'm glad that my dad did that. He had no clue what he was opening up within me as to be an obsessive Striper fan that I am today. And then, Robert Sweet he's my drumming hero.
Yeah.
I want it to be Robert Sweet.
Sure.
Wow. So how long have you been playing drums?
Oh man, I'm old. So since I'm 42 now, I technically started, I guess, when I was 6.
Oh wow.
A friend of ours gave me a pair of his drumsticks. I don't know why. He just had them, didn't need them, and gave them to me. And I started playing on like coffee pots and pans and everything. And then my parents saw that I was really into it. And when I was 7, I started taking lessons, and got to about a year and a half into it. I was like, I'm not learning anything more. I've kind of achieved what I could with these lessons, and just self-taught, played since then. But so I've been playing quite a while. I'm kind of getting up there.
Do you remember what was the first song you learned on drums?
Man, I don't. I really don't. But I remember, my dad would listen to a lot of oldies music, and just playing a lot of oldies songs would be stuck in my head, whether it be Wipeout, just something like that, or just any kind of old tune. Trying to play Striper. My parents were cheap. So my first drum set for the longest time was a bass drum, a snare drum, a tom, and just one cymbal. I had no hi-hat for years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm just like, golly, you could have just splurged and got my hi-hat at least.
Who needs a hi-hat?
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
God forbid. But I don't remember the first song I played. My mom forced me to practice every day, 30 minutes, which I'm glad she did, but
Sure.
I'd just be in there hitting stuff just to make sure she heard me hitting something. And I was bored out of my mind. Yeah, but
My mom
I remember
was like that too.
my mom was like, before school, she started making me practice, until my neighbor put it into that. He's like, I'm trying to sleep. That kid needs to quit playing drums at 6:30 in the morning.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like, thank God.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, tell us about your former band, Pacifico.
Pacifico. Yeah.
And
So
have you played in other bands?
I have. So when I was in high school, I formed a band with a singer called Linger. I know that rhymed. Linger. And it was like Habakkuk 2 something. I don't remember where that verse came. Anyways, so we were in a band called Linger, and then our bass player is a guy named Matthew Schwartz. And the Schwartz is with him too, FYI.
That's what I was
So
thinking.
just get that joke. Get that joke out of the way. But Matt and I clicked, and we were, the Linger, we put out a little cassette tape, and then we recorded a CD. And I mean, for what it is, it's really not bad. I mean, you could tell like some of the members were kind of newer than others with their talent skill, but me and Matt clicked. And after I graduated in 99, we decided that we wanted to, me and him split from that band and become Pacifico.
Okay.
Pacifico name came from the band Lassie Foundation, which is Wayne Everett, who's the drummer for Prayer Chain, and has played with a ton of people. But he had a song called Pacifico, and we didn't know it was a Mexican beer at the time either. But we started off as a Christian band, if you want to call it that. To be honest with you, we kind of veered away from the really writing. Everything was Christian lyrics, to be honest with you. We played a lot of clubs. We got serious. I left Pacifico for a little while when I was 19 and moved to Nashville, went back to Linger, lived up there for a few months. Talk about a crazy, surreal experience. You remember the band Chasing Furies?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so the singer from a band who we all lived together, my roommate, Craig, his girlfriend was Rachel, who was in Chasing Furies. So Chasing Furies, Rachel, her best friend was Danielle, who's in Out of Eden. So Danielle's always at our apartment. Rachel's always at our apartment. And then Danielle was dating a guy named Nathan, who was in the band called Plus One. Do you remember them?
I do.
Like so, Christian Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, basically. And man, I went to like Jackie Velasquez's house and was just like,
wow,
hanging out with all these like superstar people. I even got turned down by Jackie at the moment. That was awesome. I met John Schlitt. I mean, it was just crazy those 3 months too. All the people I got to hang out with. I met Kevin Max. Just hung out with all these people, all the people you see. Anyways, got back in Pacifico because I was homesick and I really missed playing with Matt. We just clicked so well. I moved back to Atlanta. And we just try to pursue it. We kind of were close to getting signed with Tooth and Nail at one point. And we handed them. Brandon got our Evil had our demo, our first demo, and it was awful. It was trash to me, quality. And he was interested. He's like, okay, give me some more stuff. And so we did. We recorded with. I just posted on Facebook today with Matt Goldman, who Matt Goldman. he's done a lot. He's done with Under Oath. He's produced Luxury. He played with Small Town Poets. He's played drums with a lot of people too, but he's got Glow in the Dark Studios. And so we recorded, I guess, 5 songs with him, and it sounded awesome. We're like, we're going to get signed. And Brandon's like, nah, it's not my thing, I guess. We're not.
Wow.
Apparently, it was between us and another band. He was looking at signing, and he signed the other band. So, we just played a lot. We recorded a lot. We had a couple songs played on MTV.
Oh wow,
there was a TV show, I couldn't even tell you the name of it, looking for music just to have during scenes as background music, and I sent in our CD for that, and they actually had a couple songs played on a couple episodes, so that was really cool. And then we did a lot of touring, more just with ourselves. We did a little short tour with the Huntingtons, and that was a lot of fun. Those guys were a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I've seen them multiple times.
But just, back in the day when you were trying to make it,
Mm-hmm.
which is totally different than now, you're trying to get signed. And what's funny was I was married, my first marriage. I'm married again. I'm on my 6th marriage. No, I'm just joking. Just my 2nd one. But what was funny was I got married young. I was the first one married in the band. And
Wow.
we were hooked up with this guy that was a manager out of New York who was going to get us. He was going to make us, he's going to get signed. But he didn't like that I was married, and basically told the guys that this guy's going to drag you down. You need to either fire him or tell him to quit.
Wow.
And they took everything granted that he said. And basically after a show told me that I need to quit or I'm fired. I'm not going to be serious enough. Even though I was driving to practice 3 days a week, which was almost an hour away, getting up at 4:30 in the morning to go to my real job and playing every weekend. I'm like, I was pissed, needless to say. Anyways, he wound up moving them to LA, taking all their money, saying he was going to move out to LA with them, and screwed them over and never moved out. They were there for a couple months, had to move back to Atlanta. And anyways, it all worked out. I mean, we're still friends now. Matt is still doing Pacifico, and Matt is really, to me, one of the most talented, underrated songwriters and performers that people don't know about with Pacifico. Wow. He just put out another new album.
Yeah.
Where he worked with Jesse Sprinkle. Aaron Sprinkle. Aaron Sprinkle,
yeah.
From Poor Old Lou. And
absolutely.
And but Jesse Sprinkle actually did play drums on a Pacifico album since I've been out of the band. But yeah, that was kind of a long story. Trust me, a lot more in that story, but maybe that kind of answered it a little bit with Pacifico.
For sure. Well, at least you're still drawing those big royalty checks from MTV, I'm sure.
Right. And the other part I forgot to mention that's kind of cool was when I did graduate high school, I was in Pacifico, and we were playing shows with Skillet, and they had their first drummer, who I think his name was Trey, and it was Trey, Ken, and John. And Corey was just in the band at that point. He just started playing with him, John's wife.
Yeah.
And Trey, their drummer, was leaving the band after the second album. I think he was recording the third album. So I got with John. I was like, hey, man, I would love to audition if possible. So we exchanged numbers, and he's like, well, we got this girl. We're pretty sure she's going to be our drummer. That was Lori, their first female drummer, before Jen.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, man, of course I'd love to try. I'd hate to regret it and say I never did audition. Right. So I drove up to Memphis from Atlanta. Man, I listened to Skillet the whole time thinking I was going to play some Skillet songs.
Yeah.
I got there. We literally never played any Skillet song. We just jammed the whole time.
Wow.
I was so nervous. I didn't get the gig, obviously, but it's still a cool little story to just, I tried out for Skillet. Got to jam with John.
I love their first album, man. I saw him before his wife joined. I saw him on tour with Grandma Train.
We played shows with him with, like 20 people in the crowd when that first album came out.
That was so good.
And then when the second album came out, I really loved that. Was it Hey You, I Love Your Soul?
Yeah.
Total change.
I was totally into that stuff back then.
For sure.
But yeah, I thought I'd throw that little story in there too.
Nice.
Yeah, awesome. Well, cool. Let's talk about backlash. So I know whenever you have a podcast and having a bunch of conversations, things happen. And
what?
But so have you ever had any backlash, man? You ever had to deal with any backlash in the Christian music industry? I know you talked about like some of the things you've gone through so far with your band, but
well, I mean,
backlash. And if so, how'd you deal with it?
Yes, I've kind of learned to ignore it, to be honest with you, because people just are keyboard warriors these days and are just trying to get attention and troll people.
Yeah.
And really to give them nothing is better and more satisfying than to feed into it. I haven't had a whole lot of backlash with anything recently that I can think of. Back in the day, like Striper, I would defend Striper to people because the Christians thought these guys can't be Christians and they're fake and you can't listen to them. And I remember debating with one of my friend's moms because we carpooled together and we were on our way to school, like fourth grade. Here I'm a fourth grader debating with some lady about Striper being Christians. Or and she's like, they can't be. But I don't really deal with a whole lot of backlash, to be honest. I can't think of anything. I just try not to. I'll type out a whole message on there and be like, no, I'll delete it. I'm like, it's not worth it.
That's good stuff. When you said a mother, I was like, it's always somebody's mom. Then I thought, right. That comment in itself is about to have we're gonna get some backlash off of that.
Yeah. That's
right. Yeah. The 80s were an interesting time for Christian rock and
God, yes,
people not accepting it.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So tell us what your experience was like as a police officer and why did you leave that profession?
I did it for 10 years. I actually started with Atlanta Police Department and was there for a little while. And then I worked at a county police department in the metro area, then moved up to North Georgia and finished out. But I won't go into any crazy stories, but I mean, policing's tough. And now it's even tougher, I'm sure, with everyone out to get any kind of police officer in trouble for anything, because trust me, a lot of people lie all the time when you're a police officer. They lie to you all the time. So it's hard to trust anybody. And it makes you very, I don't know. It's hard to trust. You're paranoid. You can't trust anybody. Because you're out, you think everyone's out to kill you, the way, it's a very stressful job. And I was a cop that I treated you the way I wanted to be treated. I wasn't always nice, but if you started being an a-hole to me, I was going to be an a-hole to you just because you're pissing me off. And right. we could make things easy. I mean, some people talk their way into going to jail where I'm like, just go, you're good. And they start yammering and I'm like, okay, never mind. Let's go to jail. You deal with a lot of things. I've seen a lot of bad stuff. I've shot someone. I had to shoot someone. I was involved in a shooting. And all that stuff weighs on you mentally.
Yeah.
And, from seeing, I've done CPR on a child that was dead. Finding dead people, or car accidents, and you're sitting there going, this family member doesn't know that this person's not coming home, and I'm sitting here staring at their dead body in the car. That stuff jacks you up, man.
Yeah, after 10 years, I mean,
10 years.
Yeah, how much more can I take?
But the funny thing is, people look at cops, and there's some bad cops out there. Trust me, there's cops with no common sense. There's just like there's mailmen that shouldn't be mailmen, or whatever, doctors that shouldn't be doctors.
There's bad mailmen.
Yeah, there's bad at all professions. Unfortunately, as police officers, you have that authority, and when you make that really wrong decision, it's really wrong. It's really bad, and it unfortunately, has a lot of repercussions. But so you're always questioning everything you do. But I always try to be kind to people. You never hear about that kind of stuff from police officers, whether, for instance, one time me and my buddy who was a police officer were on duty. We went to a call and the guy had left his wife and her son and left him with no money. It was Christmas time. And she was just going through a bad time. And we got together and we went to Walmart, bought that kid a new jacket, bought some toys for him, some food for them, and brought it back to him and gave it to him. And, just little things like that. People have no clue, right. the little things that are done. But anyways, I did it for 10 years. Something about having my first kid really stuck in my head that I don't want to die doing this. I don't, I started having panic attacks and I started having anxiety. And where I used to be gung-ho, I wanted to be the first guy on every scene. I was all about it. Let's get in a car chase. Let's do this. And all of a sudden it just hit me. I started having panic attacks, like bad, like severe anxiety, crippling anxiety. And I couldn't do it. Like I could not do it no more. I had to medically leave being a police officer. And I wanted out anyway. I was so burnt out being a police officer just because there's a lot of politics involved in it too, behind the scenes. People stabbing each other in the back because they want to be promoted over you or whatever. Stupid crap. But I couldn't do it no more mentally. And it took a couple months to kind of get back. I wouldn't even say normal because I still have some anxiety issues, but it was God, really. God, I think God allowed that to happen. Not to say he was punishing me or something, but he knew that's probably the only way I was going to get out of policing. That had to happen. And it's like a big weight lifted off my shoulder when I got out of it. I didn't know what I was going to do because I've been doing it for 10 years. I didn't go to college. I thought I was going to be a professional drummer for the rest of my life.
Oh, wow.
So, I got out of it, got on some medication. We wound up getting back into a church. We're going to a church. And I remember the first time I was in that church, I'm like, how do I get out of here? If I start having a panic attack, where's my exits? Where do I go? And my wife led me down to altar call at the church. And I remember someone putting hands on me and praying for exactly what I was going through. It was crazy. And unfortunately that guy, his name was Bob. He's passed away a couple years ago from COVID. He had cancer and had COVID. And unfortunately, one of the greatest guys I've ever met. We started going to that church, getting back involved in church. I hadn't played drums in like 10 years. Like I may have touched the drums one time. Got back into praise and worship. That's a big thing too when you have panic attacks, getting in front of a bunch of people and hoping, oh God, don't freak out in front of these people. Like don't pass out. Don't pass out in front of a bunch of people. That will be awkward. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of that whole policing story.
Yeah, that's
I don't miss it. I don't miss it at all too.
I can imagine.
It's just I tell people, I'm like, I wouldn't. I know someone's got to be a police officer, but I wouldn't suggest anybody do it. It's just a very unrewarding job. It's super stressful. Most police officers, if you look at statistics, if they make it to retirement, they usually die about a year or two after retiring. I mean, it's like,
oh, wow.
I wanna live that life.
Yeah.
Good times.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That, the responsibilities of cops. I mean, like the things you said reminded me of like other authority figures, especially like pastors. A lot of times, a lot of pastors and things, they get bad reps. Of course, unfortunately,
you got bad pastors
bad
too.
Apples, man. Yeah, bad apples ruin it a lot of times for everybody.
And that's the thing with Christianity. Is I always try to tell people you cannot put your faith in other people. Because we will always let each other down. You have to put your faith ultimately in just God. Because if you put your faith in someone else and think, oh, they're perfect, look how they got it all together, and then they screw up and do something, it makes you think, well, I guess I can screw up too. Or, it's just like they're going to let you down. It's going to be you're going to be let down no matter what.
Yeah, I agree with that
too.
100%. Yep.
As I alluded to earlier, and as we were talking about earlier, it's time to talk about podcasts.
Yes.
So let's talk about this new podcast and why'd you start it? And
I don't know. All right, next question.
Yes. Oh, that was great. Okay, so tell us about how'd you get the name? Like, what's the theme? What's the purpose?
Okay, so the name of the podcast is called Imaginary Music. I almost said Imaginary Music. The name comes from the album and song by Barren Cross. Okay. And I was just trying to come up with the name because before this, I've been doing this for over a year with this podcast. Before this, I had a podcast called the High and Inside Podcast, and it was a baseball Braves related podcast. So I would do a weekly show. I had original co-host. His name was Joel, and then I went solo. Then I had another co-host towards the end, and we would do just kind of like news. I try to make it interesting. I try to do like baseball stories, history, talk about history of the baseball with different little things. And I did some interviews with some former MLB players and people associated with baseball. But for the longest time, I've wanted to do this kind of podcast, which is talking to the artists from mainly the 80s and 90s with Christian metal, rock and metal in that genre mainly, or people tied to that scene. And almost kind of like a Where Are They Now? VH1 used to have that show. Like until about a year or two ago, I mean, I'm sure you guys have noticed it's been like a resurgence with this scene.
Absolutely.
And for the longest time, you had no clue. You're like, what happened to Fear Not? Where's Larry Worley? Why is he not singing? Or where's, the guys from Guardian or Tourniquet or whatever it might be, or really even the lesser known bands that I've talked to. And thankfully, the resurgence has come around. And I feel like thankfully I've been part of that with getting to talk to a lot of people and a lot of these artists. And I wanted to catch up with what have they been up to in their history and maybe stories that people haven't heard, or also getting the human side of them that people don't know about. We're all imperfect, or, I'm not digging for dirt, but they tell me a lot of stuff. It's quite interesting. You think, oh, these Christian artists have it all together, they don't have any problems, but yeah, they do. They have a lot of things that they've dealt with. And fortunately, my guests have all been very open with me, and we have very open conversations, I want to say. And it's been very entertaining and fun. And I've struck up some great friendship with people like Luke Easter, Stacey Roberts from The Brave. Now I'm friends with those guys, and it's an honor. It's surreal to me to think, 13-year-old Joel listening to stuff, being such a huge fan. These guys were bigger than life. And now I'm friends with some of these guys. I'm talking to them, getting to know them. I've had some of the folks from Striper. I've had Robert Sweet on, but I've been doing it a little over a year now. And, the name Imaginary Music, it kind of was like, it seems like that's perfect, because imaginary music, in a way, a lot of people don't really think of Christian music, or it's this whole different thing. It's like, it's not real, maybe to some people. And it kind of just seemed like, yeah, this seems like a good name for the show. And fortunately, the guys from Barren Cross have given me the blessing and said it was cool to use the name. And I had Mike Lee on, or what does it go by now? Michael Drive, and who's the lead singer for Barren Cross, and he was totally cool with it. He was fun to talk to. And I try to do like a weekly show, or have it come out weekly every Monday. It's on iTunes, Spotify. It's been a lot of fun though. And I know there's other people that are kind of doing something similar. I know you guys have your big Facebook group, and I do appreciate you guys allowing me to be a part of that and doing this right now.
Yeah.
It's I'm sure you guys have, talking about moderating and backlash, I'm sure you guys have a lot of moderating to do on that Facebook group page.
Nah, none of that.
Easiest thing ever. No, we're never like talking about that kind of stuff in our chat. Man.
Trust me, I've had some of those type out messages to some of the quote unquote dumb posts. And I'm like, no, I'm not even going to go there. I'm gonna look like a big old butt, and it's pointless.
Yeah. So the reason we have so many moderators is definitely because of all that. And
oh my gosh,
it's almost 24 hours a day, especially with that many people in the group. It's like,
well, I know because I have a Facebook group page for the Imaginary Music Podcast, and I from the beginning I just said I'm going to have to approve anything that's going to be put on here that's not from me, because you get a lot of people putting like, hey, go get this t-shirt of the band. It's it's just weird crap. Yeah. I mean, just,
those are the worst
accounts. I hate those.
Those are the worst.
They've even done it with the Christian metal logo that we have.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I got one guy that he constantly posts these like YouTube link videos, and it'll be like for soccer stuff, and I'm like get out of here. I'm not trying to be mean to him. I kick him off, because sometimes it is related, and I'm like, well, I'm still not going to put it on there, but because I don't want it to be like just a bunch of junk when people go through the Facebook wall page. Right. But so props to you guys for
thank you. Yeah,
stuff you deal with, I'm sure.
I think part of the success of what we do is that we do keep it music related, because I don't know, I've been a part of, I am in other groups, and they just get off track so easy.
Right. Yeah. Because the one that really gets me is and I haven't seen it lately. Maybe it's been kind of moderated pretty well, but the whole, is this person really a Christian? Or trying to judge other people's walk in their life. And it's like, how about you just worry about your Christianity and quit trying to start rumors about someone else and their Christianity?
Next
you don't
time
know them.
when you interview Michael Sweet, can you make sure he's really a Christian? Because I saw a picture of him
Oh gosh.
with a cigar. So I just
man.
I just really want to confirm.
Yeah, he's
Right, exactly.
he's cussed a couple times too. So
I
I don't
know.
know.
Oh no! Oh my goodness! Oh wow!
Yeah.
Took a picture with King Diamond. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
that picture.
Man, that blew up. Oh,
Dude,
yeah.
shoot, I'd take a picture with King Diamond if I could too.
Yes,
Sure.
I wouldn't mind. So yeah, it's just funny how people are so judgmental on Facebook and
Keyboard
gollies.
warriors. Right.
Oh yeah, rumors get started. So yeah, I tease like I definitely have an ongoing joke in the group. It's like you all trying to be like the Christian TMZ, I guess. Like when they start making rumors.
Yeah, they're trying to break news like,
Yeah,
oh my
yeah.
gosh. And people are like, who cares?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Break fake news at that. Most of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Although some people, I love Michael Sweet, but he does put a little too much on stuff on social media, a little too much. Some people, Dale Thompson's pretty good about that too.
Oh yeah, Dale
I think they like stirring the pot up and
that's our favorite one.
oh god, what's George Ochoa? Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, George is
George, man, and I
God
love
bless
all
of
those
them.
guys.
Those
Yes.
I know that name. Who is George with?
from
He was in
Deliverance.
Deliverance.
And right?
Man, he's Worldview, is it? And he's been on my podcast before, and he was
Yeah.
really fun to talk to. I love all those guys, but they know what they're doing. They know
Yeah,
what they're doing
for
when
sure.
they're posting all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, so I love that you ask genuine questions on the podcast, and it's not like a "Hey, I got you" type of questions. It's like, where are you? What you're going? Those type of things. So, how much research do you have to do for each interview, and how long does it take you to get those interviews set up?
It just depends. Some interviews I don't have to do a whole. I mean, like with Striper, I know all the stuff I want to ask probably, but there are some bands I don't know a whole lot about. I'm familiar with them. I mean, even like just with Eric recently with
Savior Machine.
Yeah, Savior Machine. I mean, I knew stuff about Savior Machine, but I really didn't know a whole lot. And I tried with the best I can. I try, especially with what you got. Sometimes there's not a lot, especially bands that are lesser known, to do research. So I try to, a lot of times the stuff also is when they answer a question, they say something, and then I go, oh, I want to know about that. Or I'll ask them a question that I had no clue about from their answer. Just like us talking right now, just conversating. That's what I feel like what it is.
Absolutely.
But I mean, I'll just reach out to these people, and usually just on Facebook, and message them. And sometimes they'll say no, they don't want to do it. I've had people that don't want to do it. Some people have blown me off and ghosted me, and that's what those are the ones that suck, because you'll take your time and research, you do all this stuff, and you guys probably thought I was going to do that with you guys because I blew you off a couple times.
No, man.
No, we've been in contact with each other a lot.
But
So
yeah, that's the one where because I had one guy, and I won't name him. It's not like a popular person really, but it's like 3 times he said, okay, let's do it this day, and that day will come, and then crickets, nothing. And I'm not like, it doesn't make me mad. I'm just like, whatever, I'll just move on to the next guest. I mean, I'm kind of, in a way, I'm not trying to be cocky, but I'm kind of doing you a favor, because not a whole people know about you, and it kind of brings attention to you,
Right.
and it's kind of not to say glorify you, but it kind of does. I'm kind of glorifying you with this interview a little bit, and hoping people remember you and go back and check out your old music. And that is the goal for people to, they do that a lot. They're like, well, thanks, Joel, for having that person on, because I just went and bought their album or whatever.
Nice.
Or they may be creating new music, and being a new band. Yeah.
But that happens too. But thankfully, everyone's really been cool for the most part. Some people take a long time to eventually get on the show. Like right now, one of the guys that I really hope I get him on, and he said he'll do it, and I just don't know if it's going to happen. And he keeps saying I'll do it, and it's been months. Is Gary Lanier?
Oh, wow.
Tourniquet.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And
Well, my favorite guitar.
That's one. That's like a huge one. I would love to talk with him and just have a conversation, because of everything that
All
he's
everything.
going through.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought you was going
And
to say Marlon Ferber, but
yeah,
Gary is awesome too.
well, I was gonna say Phil Driscoll, but
Yeah.
I should get Phil on.
Nice.
I've seen Phil in person too. He came
No,
to my church
I've
before.
never
Phil,
seen
man.
Phil. No.
Saw Phil.
I think I saw Phil but it was like the 90s. So
Yeah, I saw him in the 80s, but Phil had some I think some tax issues a while back.
I think I remember that.
I think he might have gone to jail or something, or was going to. But yeah, it's just been really cool. But the thing is constantly trying to find these guests, because after a while you're like, ooh, I've gone through all the big list that I really want to go through. Now I'm trying to, but then someone will mention someone, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that person. Of course I'd love to talk to them. But and thankfully, sometimes you talk to some people and the personality is not there. You kind of got to drag stories out. I really haven't had that a whole lot, and then you just have some guests that are just super awesome, super interesting.
Yeah.
And, I've been blessed to have those conversations too with, I mean, if you seem like you name it, I probably have had that guest on. And then people are always messaging me and like, why ain't you got this guy on? Or why ain't you talking? I'm like, I've tried. They won't come on. They won't respond, whatever it might be. And like just today, I watched that documentary about the band Luxury, who, my old band, when I was in Linger, we covered a Luxury song, and, a lot of stuff I didn't know about them. I was watching that documentary, and Matt Goldman's in that, who produced our Pacifico album. And I didn't know he was there when they got into they had a bad accident on the way back from Cornerstone around 95. And I didn't know Matt Goldman was in the other vehicle. And I was watching that video. I'm like, what? I had no clue. But anyways, I think it's Glenn, the drummer. He said he would be interested in coming on the show and being a guest, but just always thinking of someone different, reaching out, and hopefully the show can go on as long as possible.
Nice.
And I've gone with some secular guests too. I had Troy. Was it Troy? I'm going blank on the last name, but he played drums with White Lion. He's played with a ton of secular artists. He's played shows with CC DeVille.
Have you reached out to any of the guys from Rage of Angels that went on to Still Heart?
Well, unfortunately, the drummer's passed away, because that'd be like, I'd love to chat with him, because he did go to Still Heart. But I reached out to their lead singer, never heard anything, could not get him on. I know he did an interview with Area 312 for their video a while back. I'm a fan of that album, but yeah, you probably name it. I probably have reached out. I'm sure, when will this episode come out, that this video?
Just as soon as I can get it edited and everything.
Okay.
Tomorrow. No.
Yeah, man. I mean, I don't know, but
An hour ago.
yeah, that's right.
It's
What
already
about, I don't even know if any of these guys are still around. Messiah Prophet.
Oh wow, I remember them.
The lead singer's passed away, and Area 312 has actually had a couple of those guys on. I haven't reached out to them. I did reach out to Striking. I've reached out to one of those guys, but it hasn't. I mean, no, they did Area 312, and those guys at Area 312 are really awesome. Rex and Kent, I've been on with them before, and it's never about competition with things like us or you guys. It's not. We're all in it together.
That's right.
And it's awesome just to be like a big family, just having this love for Christian rock or metal or polka. Christian polka.
Nah, with the metal family. Let's go with the metal family.
So
it's metal,
just fun. So yeah, but I mean, if people are watching this and there is a name and you haven't heard it, I mean, I'm not going to be upset if you throw it out and send me a message, under Joel Walker. You find me or the Imaginary Music Podcast Facebook page. Throw it out there. It may be a name I haven't thought of, and just but I've had people just flat out turn it out. The lead singer for Prayer Chain, I'm going to blank on his name, but he's like, nope, I'm not interested. I'm like, that sucks, because I'd love to chat with him, because I was a fan of them back in the day too.
Wow.
But some people are just not comfortable doing interviews, or just don't care anymore. They're like, that stuff's in the past and it's not what I'm about anymore.
All right, well, cool. So we talked, of course, a lot about classic bands. Are there any newer bands that you plan to interview? Newer bands that you're really into?
Yeah, I'm into. Christian wise, They're yeah, let me look at my phone. I just discovered this band this week, and I'm like, I don't know how I missed them, but they have a different lead singer every album.
Oh,
Because they were on another podcast. It's the two guys I can't think of. Wild Man Steve show. That's what it was.
Listen to
So
that.
it's Firstborn, Bourne. Have you guys heard of that band,
I haven't
Firstborn?
heard of them.
Heard of 'em.
I never had heard of them either, and I
Well, I
just
guess I'll be-
happened. Well, they got a new album come out, and they have so the first album they have a female lead singer, and she sounds great. Then they had a male singer, and he's not there anymore. And now they got another male singer, who kind of I really like his voice. They have one single that's out, so check out Firstborn.
Yeah,
That's one I
got it
just
right here.
Yep, that's it. And
Yeah.
then I'm kind of looking through my phone here trying to think, because I really just listen to a lot older stuff.
Yeah.
Man, who else? Some of them is like the older guys that have newer bands, like what is it, Worldview with George Ochoa and Ray Para. Man, it's hard to say because it just music these days it kind of sucks. There's not a lot of good stuff out there anymore, and I just kind of revert back to the old stuff. There's some secular stuff that I listen to now, and this will really, strict Christians will love this, but I love the band Ghost for the most part, except for some of their lyrics I just can't
Yeah.
I can't get behind. But
Annoying, actually.
yeah, I just there's newer bands I'm getting into, or the Struts. I love the Struts because I'm a Queen fan, and they definitely have a Queen vibe, especially with their lead singer Luke.
I gotta check them out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, check out the Struts. Their lead singer in some pictures looks exactly like a young Freddie Mercury, and he
Wow.
sounds like him at times too. I'm a
Wow.
huge Queen fan. Like, I love
Yeah.
Queen. So, you guys ever checked out Mark Martel?
Mm-mm.
Oh man. So Mark Martel was in a Christian band, and then I think it's called Down Here, or
I remember down here. Yeah.
and he was in that band. So he was in there, and then he auditioned for the Queen Extravaganza or something like that years ago. He wound up being on Ellen. His video went viral for singing the Queen song because he sounds identical to Freddie Mercury. He sounds so much like him that on the new Queen movie about Freddie Mercury, he was the voice for a lot of the singing stuff that they had to do,
really?
because obviously Freddie's not here. But he does a lot of live shows now. Check him out on YouTube, Mark Martel,
Nice.
Martel. You will be blown away.
That's
he
great.
looks
I-
a little.
I
He
just-
looks.
I just wrote
Yeah,
it down. Mhm.
yeah. I'm telling you, and he's a Christian too. He's
Mhm.
really cool. But he's also a big Keith Green fan too. So he's done some Keith
Oh,
Green cover
love
back in the
Keith
day on
Green.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So
It's
so
awesome.
that did not answer your question, but
No, you're good. That was great.
So what's the most controversial topic you've discussed on the podcast?
oh my God. I'll say this right now, and I won't get into it too much, but the stuff I found out behind the scenes would blow people's minds if they knew stuff I knew.
Yeah.
And I'll let it come out when it comes out, if it does.
Mhm.
I'm not here to make that news, but
Right.
trust me, there's
TMZ. No.
stuff. If I want it to be like that, trust me, I could, but
Right.
I want to be respectful to people, and if it's their story to tell.
Mhm.
I mean, some things you can figure out on your own if you just look at some certain stuff. I'm not going to say anything further than that.
But has
Right.
there something come up on the podcast that kind of was out of nowhere for you, or
I'm trying to think, really, and nothing really throws me off for the most part.
Yeah.
Even stuff that people might think would be controversial. Like I had Ken Pike on, who was in Malachi, and they were a Christian band, but he's not a Christian anymore. And we discussed that, and we had a really good conversation. And I'm not here to try to convert anybody back to Christianity. If he knows the word probably better than I do.
Right.
But I'm here just to have a conversation, be friendly, and represent Christ the best I can with my actions. But I'm not going to sit here and beat you down. But Ken was also, he was awesome to talk to. We talked about his ghost hunting stuff he does, and all these other little things. But I can't, controversial, man. Trust me, there's controversial stuff that people knew, that behind the scenes stuff that I've dealt with.
Oh yeah.
I've had someone go off on me one time and told me they were going to get me blackballed. I won't say who it was because of a misunderstanding. We cleared it up. But you know, I'm not, that's the problem. You got a lot of,
You gave them
there's a lot of behind the stuff that just if people knew, they'd be shocked. But like I said, we're all humans. Just because we're, you know, they're part of this Christian scene or whatever, there's a lot of imperfections out there. I have them too. You know, no one's perfect. We all go over the speed limit, don't we? We sin every day.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you gave somebody a traffic ticket. That's why they were mad.
Right. But yeah, without saying too much, because I don't want to.
No, yeah, you're good.
You know, I rather if someone has something that I know, I'll just let them say it when they want to say it or come out with that news, whether whoever it might be. But and there's unfortunate things too that have just you see these band members that were so tight at one time and now they can't stand each other. And I'm not just saying that with one person in particular. There's quite a few bands that are like that. You're like, man, that sucks that you guys did all this stuff. And, well, I'll say, for instance, because they even said it on the show, and it's not a secret, but Rex and Scott from White Cross cannot stand each other. They do not like each other, never have liked each other, according to both of them.
Decades now.
Yeah. And so, Rex doesn't really get into as much when I had him on, but Scott was not holding anything back on the episode I had him on. And I'm glad, look, I want people to be honest and open. Sure. That might surprise some people because really it just came down to, hey, we both create good music together and that's about it. And that's the only reason I want to be around you. It's sad. I hate that's because you're supposed to also be representing Christ. But look, there's people I can't stand either. I just don't want to be around it. It's life, we all have different personalities.
True. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. Let's look at, your most memorable podcast.
I have to say it's probably Robert Sweet, of course, just because getting to talk to him, he was my number one guy I wanted to talk to. And I had Janice on, his mother was on an episode. I texted her, kind of kept up with her because she's like, Robert's not going to do interviews. He's not doing it. And then all of a sudden I just like, let me try one more time. And she said, well, let me pass your phone number on to his wife. And like he called me on my phone. I was taking my lunch break. I was like, shaking. I'm like, oh my God.
You did answer, right?
Yeah, I answered and we talked for a little bit. The only thing I hate about that episode is nothing bad. It's just that I had a time limit, as you guys probably wish you had with me at this point with all my bladder.
No, we're good, man. This is lightweight compared to some of the interviews we've done.
Well, it's just, it's just because he's like, I got 30 minutes. I'm like, 30 minutes? And I was like, we went about 40 minutes because and I've met Robert Ford. I've talked to him a lot of before, and I've had some very open, good conversations with him. But that one really stood out. My favorite personal interview, because I got everything out of it that I wanted out of it. They answered every question. They were super open, was with Tim Gaines from Stryper, formerly of Stryper.
Nice. Yeah.
Tim was one of my first interviews. Tim, if you follow him on Facebook, he's not had the most pleasant breakup or split with Stryper. And he posted a lot of really kind of disappointing things, in my opinion. Yeah. That wasn't representing Christ as well. But you're also, like I said, you're human. You have emotions. You're hurt. Sometimes you feel like you want to lash out and say these things. And the way he responded to me asking him about that, and whether, I don't remember if I said, do you regret doing that? But he did. And he showed remorse, and he was sorry for the way he behaved and wished he would have done it. And it was just a really cool, open interview from someone that was a real big part of my life. I've had Tim, I've had Robert on, I had Janice Sweet. And
Tim's a pastor now, right?
He's an associate pastor out there with Ronnie. And I had Ronnie on the show too, so he was really cool because Ronnie James? He played the whole 80s LA scene, but wasn't a Christian. So that was a different perspective of getting his perspective of playing the Hollywood scene back in the 80s as not a Christian and then later becoming a Christian. So that's pretty cool. But anything with Stryper, stands out. Talking to Andy Robbins from Holy Soldier was one of my favorites.
Oh yeah,
And
amazing bass player.
yeah, just I've talked to so many people. I'm really, really blessed that every single guest I've had on, people may be like, I've never even heard of this person. I've never heard this name, but I feel like they always have a cool story. Like one of my guests, his sister was Amanda Peterson, who was a famous actress in the 80s, who starred in that movie, Can't Buy Me Love, and was in another favorite movie of mine as a kid. What's called, oh my God, River Phoenix is in it, where they go to space and their kids, they go to space. They make like that junk spaceship. Oh man, no one knows. I cannot think of the name of it. Explorers, I think is the name of it. And but anyways, just like to talk and get his perspective of having this Hollywood celebrity. Unfortunately, she passed away because of the Hollywood scene and drugs and things. But I always feel like this seems like it could be a good talk. May not know who this person is, but they have a story too that I find interesting, and hopefully others will.
So after doing this for a year, and I know you said you weren't able to get a hold of everybody, but what is a Holy Grail interview that you're still looking for?
Jimmy and Jay, the JJs.
Hey, look at that now, and
you're there, man. You're there.
Yeah.
All right,
well,
we are here. Let's go. Yeah, that would be interesting. You
gosh.
asking those questions.
How does it feel to sit in front of a window? Jay, go. No.
Oh yes, exactly. Yo,
in-depth questions. Oh man, I would really, one of the top guys I would love to have on is Blackie Lawless.
Oh,
Nice.
That's like,
love that.
That is one of the top guys because he's a Christian now, even though, it's one other thing, people judge, but well, he's singing the old songs again. But I heard a broadcast he was on, I can't remember the name of it, maybe about a year ago. And he encouraged me as a Christian. I'm like, dang, that makes me want to be a better Christian, listening to him talk about Christianity. So Blackie, of course, the guys from Stryper. I still love to get Michael and Oz. Michael does so many interviews. I'm scared that if I got Michael, it'd be like, okay, you got 15 minutes or 30 minutes. And I really would like to get in depth with him and hope he would be open. I don't want to ask him the same stuff everyone asks him all the time.
Right.
Those guys, like I said, Gary Lanier.
You could ask Jay. Probably got Blackie's phone number. You guys remember Jay?
Right.
Yo,
you guys ain't buddies.
A funny thing about Blackie, I was thinking about them doing that that one song again. I want to do the acronyms like FLAB, and he didn't even sing it. He let the crowd sing it.
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Where'd you see him at? What?
No, I didn't see them personally.
Oh, were you?
YouTube. It might not be on there anymore. But
I almost saw. I wanted to go see him when he came to Atlanta. I just didn't get to recently. I did just go see Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper would be fun to talk to.
Oh yeah,
with him being a Christian,
that would be awesome. Yeah.
But the other thing is, when I interview people, it's like I don't want to ask the same thing everyone does. I mean, granted, I have my generic questions that set up getting to know them, but trying to find something different, it can be difficult with people that are popular and do all these interviews. But that's why I don't really say I interview them. I feel like I call it conversations, because that's what I feel like I'm having is just two people sitting and chatting, one kind of getting to know the other person more. No one's, obviously you're learning about me, but when I'm interviewing, no one wants to hear about me, because that has been the backlash I've had. People are like, yeah, I don't want to hear about you, Joel. I don't care about your story. I'm like, okay. I've gone back and actually edit myself out. I'll be telling a little story about me. I'm like, oh yeah, people don't care. Let me edit that out of the.
Well, that's why we're here today.
Yeah, exactly.
You're one view, and it'll be me watching this later. You're like, you only got one view for Joel.
Oh no, I'm sure people can come check it out. So yeah, let's talk about home studio, because heard you have a home studio that you're trying to get going.
I'm trying. Yeah, I don't have anything. I have kind of getting there, but with drums, unfortunately, you're a drummer, right, Jay?
Yeah, I am.
So you got a lot more microphones you're gonna have to do.
Exactly.
As opposed to just
it's expensive, man.
Exactly. You know, and I like, you know, I like to have some SM57s, and
Yeah.
I got some mics, but you gotta get all the mics. And you know, I'm sitting here going, well, even if I just have the basic drum set of a 5-piece, you still, then you got your overhead mics. You know, it's just expensive. That's the part of it. But once I could get that set up, I kind of have where I feel like I have a mix with my electronic set and acoustic set enough right now where I could do really good demos for someone if they needed drums in a demoing kind of environment. But yeah, that is my goal, is to hopefully have that and can play with some artists. You know, like Ken Pike, I mentioned, he wants me to play hopefully on his next album with his band. It's called Absalon. Luke Easter has kind of talked to me about if he did take his stuff out live, maybe playing with him. And I did play to one of his songs. I'm supposed to do another one, but you know, there's been talks of kind of hooking up. And you know, and I don't want people to think I'm doing my podcast to use it as a selfish purpose either. I could care less if that stuff doesn't happen. I'd be great. I'd love to, but I'm not like, hey, after a show, hey, can I be your drummer? And maybe I've done it a couple times, but no, I'm not trying to use it to pump me up. But
Right.
you know, I do talk about it. I'm like, hey, if you do need a drummer, you know, I'm kind of decent. You know, I'll send you some stuff, and if it works out, that'd be awesome. But you know, we'll
That's
see.
awesome.
We'll see.
Yeah, you could have definitely some fun there for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so just wrapping it up here. So, how can people contact you if they're you know, a band or somebody that's interested in either you know, you doing drums or being on the podcast? And then also, how can we help you with your ministry as the podcast that you do?
Yeah, I appreciate asking that. I don't know. No, I'm just joking. Write me a letter. My address is no, you know, I'm on Facebook. So Facebook is probably the easiest way, of course. Joel Walker. I don't accept every friend request because sometimes I'm like, oh no, I don't know about this person. But anyways, you know, no. You know, Facebook, but really also go and like the Facebook group page. I don't know if there's an exact link. I mean, if you guys are able to link it to it for the podcast, but
Yeah,
you know, people can send me messages through that too. But also just my Facebook Messenger. If you look me up, Joel Walker. It's kind of a goofy picture of me wearing a bandana, but it's me. I was bored one day with COVID the other week, and I was like, let me take some weird pictures at night. That always goes well. Anyways, yeah, so that'd probably be a good way. Or my email is jtravwalker80. So it's JTRAV, then my last name Walker 80 at yahoo.com. If you're a Nigerian prince, don't even bother sending me one. I'm not giving you money.
Well, we'll get Vicus to send you one from South Africa.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I ain't got no money, buddy. I'm broke. I need you to send me money. But yeah, those are probably the easiest ways. And then the podcast, of course, is on iTunes. They can, you know, a lot of people don't have Apple, so it's on Spotify. I personally listen to all my podcasts on Apple just because it's easier. But and if anybody ever wants to check out Pacifico, that stuff's on streaming. I'm on some of the older stuff, but I highly recommend Pacifico. It's not heavy, it's not hard rock. We were kind of like pop rock in a way, I guess you could, but Matt's a really good songwriter. I would highly suggest people checking out Pacifico with Matthew Schwartz.
That's awesome. Well, Joel, we really appreciate your time. Everybody, check out Imaginary Music. We'll put the links down there.
Yes,
and
sir.
God bless. Y'all have a great day.
Yes, man, you rock, man. Appreciate you.